Hello everybody, welcome back to Alcatraz and the Evil Librarians. I wanted to let you know that I know it seems like I wear the same thing like every single day, but one, I like to have my Cornerstone jacket on for you because this is Cornerstone business, and two, I do a lot of all my videos on the same day. So I'll record a bunch of them on one day, it just depends on whenever I have some peace and quiet in the house, and then I just do as many as I can. So that's why I promise I change and shower sometimes, at least. Thought I should warn you, let you know anyway. All right, so chapter 4. Let me make sure that we can get through the whole thing. I don't know, we might only be able to do a half one. We'll see. So remember, this is the sunglasses and remember Grandpa Smedry said that sunglasses are for warriors only, and we know that and he said, you are not a warrior, but his cousin Sing is a warrior. Hushlanders, I'd like to take this opportunity to commend you for reading this book. I realize the difficulty you must have gone through to obtain it. After all, no librarian is likely to recommend it, considering the secrets it exposes about their kind. And to tell you the truth, I got this on Amazon. I don't know if it's in the libraries for real. We should check. Actually, in my experience, it has been said that people generally don't recommend this kind of book at all. It is far too interesting. Perhaps you have had other kinds of books recommended to you. Perhaps even you have been given books by friends, parents, or teachers, then told that these books are the type you have to read. These books are invariably described as important, which in my experience pretty much means that they're boring. Words like meaningful and thoughtful are other good clues. I would never tell you those things. Remember, I only read books to you that I find interesting. If there is a boy in these kinds of books, he will not go on an adventure to fight against librarians, paper monsters, and one-eyed dark oculators. In fact, the lad will not go on adventure or fight against anything at all. Instead, his dog will die, or in some cases, his mother will die. If it's a really meaningful book, both his dog and his mother will die. Apparently, most writers have something against dogs and mothers. That sounds a lot like a Disney cartoon. I feel like the parents always die in those. Neither my mother nor my dog dies in this book. I'm rather tired of those types of stories. In my opinion, such fantastical, unrealistic books in which boys live on mountains, families work on farms, or anyone has anything to do with the Great Depression, have a tendency to rot the brain. To combat such silliness, I've written the volume you now hold, a solid, true account. Hopefully, it will help anchor you in reality. So when people try to give you some book with a shiny round award on the cover, be kind and gracious, but tell them that you don't read fantasy because you prefer stories that are real. Then come back here and continue your research on the cult of evil librarians who secretly rule the world. This, Grandpa Smedry proclaimed, pointing to Sing, is your cousin Sing Smedry. He's a specialist in ancient weapons. Sing nodded modestly. He had exchanged his tunic for what appeared to be a formal kimono, though he still wore his dark sunglasses. The kimono was a very rich dark blue silk, and although it fit him quite well, there was something wrong about the entire presentation. More than just the fact that the kimono itself wasn't something an ordinary person in America wore, Sing's chest parted the front of the silk, and the loose garment hung tied around the waist with a large sash tucked beneath his massive stomach. Here is a picture of Sing. And you notice he also has a lot of weaponry. And he's holding his glasses, not wearing them. But he is wearing the kimono and sandals. Nice to meet you, Sing. Sing, I said. You can just call me Sing, the large man replied. Ask him what his talent is, Grandpa whispered. Oh, I said, what's your talent, Sing? I can trip and fall to the ground, Sing said. I blinked. That's a talent? It's not as grand as some, I know, Sing said, but it serves me well. And the kimono? I asked. I come from a different kingdom than your grandfather, Sing said. I am from Mokia, where your grandfather and Quentin are from Nalhala. Okay, I said, but what difference does that make? It means I have to wear a different disguise from the rest of you, Singh explained. That way, I won't stand out as much. If I look like a foreigner to America, people will ignore me. I paused. Whatever, I finally said. It makes perfect sense, Grandpa Smedley said. Trust me, we've researched this. He turned and pointed to the other man. Now, this is your cousin Quentin Smedley. Short and wiry, Quentin wore a sharp tuxedo like that of Grandpa Smedley, complete with the red carnation on the lapel. He had dark brown hair, pale skin, and freckles. Like Singh, he looked to be about 30 years old. Well met, young oculator, Quentin said from behind his dark sunglasses. And what is your talent? I dutifully asked. I can say things that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. I thought everyone here had that talent, I noted. Nobody laughed. Free kingdomers never get my jokes. He's also really sneaky, Grandpa Smedley said. Quentin nodded. Great, I said. So are both of you oculators? Oh, goodness, no, Singh said. We're cousins to the Smedley family, not members of the direct line. Didn't you notice the glasses? Grandpa Smedley asked. They're wearing warrior's lenses, one of the only kinds of lenses that a non-oculator can use. Yes, I said. Actually, I did notice the glasses. I noticed the tuxedos, too. Is there a reason you dress like that? If we walk around like this, we'll kind of stand out, right? Maybe the young lord has a point, Singh said, rubbing his chin. Lord, I thought. I had no idea what to make of that. Should we get Alcatraz a disguise too, Lord Smedley? Quentin asked my grandfather. No, Grandpa Smedley said. He isn't supposed to wear a suit at his age. At least, I don't think. I'm fine, I said quickly. The collection of Smedleys nodded. Now, many of you Hushlanders may be scoffing at the disguises used by the Smedley group. Before you pass judgment on them, realize that they were somewhat out of their element. Imagine if you were suddenly thrust into a different culture with very little knowledge of its customs or fashions. Would you know the difference between a Rounsfield tunic and a Larkian tunic? Would you be able to distinguish when to wear a batold and when to wear a carfou? Would you even know where you wrap a Carflagian wicker strap? No? Well, that's because I just made all of those items up. But you didn't know that, did you? Therefore, my point is proven. All things considered, I think the Smedleys did quite well. I've seen other infiltration teams, ones without Grandpa Smedley, who is widely held as the Free Kingdom's most expert on American culture and society. The last group that tried an infiltration without him ended up trying to sneak into the Federal Reserve Bank disguised as potted plants. They got watered. Are we ready then? Grandpa Smedley said. My grandson will be leading this infiltration. Our target is the Central Downtown Library. That makes me have a text-to-text connection about the A Wrinkle in Time, where they went to the Central Intelligence. And it's interesting that this is the Central Downtown Library, and it is also an evil place. Singh and Quentin glanced at each other, looking a bit surprised. Grandpa had mentioned a library infiltration to Singh, but apparently the downtown library was not what he'd expected. It made me wonder once again what I was getting myself into. I realize this will be a most ambitious mission, gentlemen, Grandpa Smedley said, but we have no choice. Our goal is to recover the legendary sands of Rashid, which the librarians have acquired through some very clever scheming and plotting. Grandpa Smedley turned, nodding to me. The sands belong to my grandson, and so he will be lead oculator on this mission. Once we breach the initial stacks, we'll split into 2 groups and search for the sands. Gather as much information as you can and recover the sands at all costs. Any questions? Quentin raised his hand. What exactly does this bag of sands do? Grandpa Smedley wavered. We don't actually know, he admitted. Before this, nobody had ever managed to gather enough of them to smelt a lens, or at least nobody had managed to do it during our recorded history. There were vague legends, however. The lenses of Rashid are supposed to be very powerful. This will be a great danger to the people of the Free Kingdoms if they are allowed to fall into librarian hands. The room fell silent. I'm going to... Whoa. Where am I? That better? The room fell silent. Finally, Singh raised a meaty hand. Does this mean I can bring weapons? Of course, Grandpa Smedry said. Can I bring lots of weapons? Sing asked carefully. Whatever you deem necessary, Sing, Grandpa Smedry said. You're the specialist, but go quickly. We're going to be late. Sing nodded, dashing back down his hallway. And you? Grandpa Smedry asked of Quentin. I'm fine, the short man said. But, my lord, don't you think we should tell Bastille what we're doing? Jabbering Jorgans? No, Grandpa Smedry said. Absolutely not. I forbid it. I'm going to add that to our list. Jabbering Jorgans. Are you keeping track of these alliterations? It's kind of fun. She's not going to be happy, Quentin said. Nonsense, Grandpa Smedry said. She enjoys being ignored. It gives her an excuse to be grumpy. Now, since we have to wait for Sing to get his weapons, I'm going to go get something to eat. I was clever enough to pack some lunches for myself and the lad. Coming, Alcatraz? I shrugged, and we made our way out through the cooler, passing the armored knights, and walked back into the shop. Grandpa Smedry nodded to the two hillbilly attendants and walked out toward his car, apparently going to grab the briefcases stuffed with food. I didn't follow him. At that point, I still felt a little overwhelmed by what was happening to me. Part of me couldn't believe what I had seen, so I decided to try to figure out how they were hiding that huge room inside. I turned, wandering around to the back of the small service station when I carefully paced off the lengths of its walls. The building was a rectangle, 10 paces long on two sides, 18 paces long on the other two. Yet the room inside had been far larger. A basement? I wondered. Yes, I realized that it took me quite some time to accept that the place was magical. You free kingdomers really have no idea what it's like to live in librarian-controlled areas, so stop judging me and just keep reading. I kept at it, trying to figure out some logical explanation. I squatted down on the hot, tar-stained asphalt, trying to find a slope in the ground. I stood up, eyeing the back of the building, which was set with a small window. I grabbed a broken chair from a nearby dumpster, then climbed up to peek into the window. I couldn't see anything through the dark glass. I pressed my face against it, bumping my glasses against the window, and shaded the sunlight with my hand, but I still couldn't see inside. I leaned back, sighing. But then it seemed as if I could see something. Not through the window, but alongside it. The edges of the window seemed to fuzz a tiny bit, and I got the distinct, strange impression that I could see through the wall's siding. I pulled off my glasses. The illusion disappeared, and the wall looked perfectly normal. I put them back on, and nothing really changed. Yet, as I stared at the wall, I felt the odd sense again, as if I could just barely see something. I cocked my head, teetering on the broken chair. Finally, I reached up a hand, laying it against the white siding. Then, I broke it. I didn't really do much. I didn't have to twist, pull, or yank. I merely rested my hand against the wall for a moment, and one of the siding planks popped free and toppled to the ground. Through the broken section, I could see the true wall of the building. Glass. The entire wall was made of a dark lavender glass. I saw through the siding, I thought. Was it my glasses that let me do that? A footstep sounded on the gravel behind me. I jumped, almost slipping off the chair. And there he was, the man from my house, the caseworker, or whatever he was, with the suit and the gun. I wobbled, feeling terror rise again. Of course he would chase us. Of course he would find us. What was I thinking? Why hadn't I just called the police? Lad? Grandpa Smedry's voice called. He appeared around the corner, holding an open briefcase smeared with ketchup. Your sandburger is ready. Aren't you hungry? The man with the gun spun around, weapon still raised. Don't move! He yelled nervously. Stay right there. Grandpa Smedry asked, still walking. Grandpa! I screamed as the caseworker pulled the trigger. The gun went off. There was a loud crack and a chunk of siding blew off the building right in front of Grandpa Smedry. The old man continued to walk along, smiling to himself, looking completely relaxed. The caseworker fired again, then again. Both times the bullets hit the wall right in front of Grandpa Smedry. Now, a true hero would have tackled the man who was shooting his grandfather or done something else equally heroic. I am not a true hero. I stood frozen with shock. Here now, Grandpa Smedry said. What's going on? Looking desperate, the caseworker pointed his gun back at me and pulled the trigger. The consequences, of course, were immediate. The magazine dropped out the bottom of the gun. The sliding part On the top of the weapon fell off. The gun's trigger popped free, propelled by a broken spring. The screws fell out of the gun's sides, dropping to the pavement. The caseworker widened his eyes in disbelief, watching as the last part of the grip fell to pieces in his hand. In a final moment of indignity, the dying gun belched up a bit of metal, an unfired bullet which spun in the air a few times before clicking down to the ground. The man stared at the pieces of his weapon. Grandpa Smedry paused beside me. "I think you broke it," he whispered to me. The caseworker turned and scrambled away. Grandpa Smedry watched him go, a sly smile on his lips. "What did you do?" I asked. "Me?" Grandpa Smedry said. "No, you're the one who did that. At a distance, even. I've rarely seen a talent work with such power, though it's a shame to ruin a good antique weapon like that." I looked at the gun pieces, my heart thumping. It couldn't have been me. I've never done anything like that before. "Have you ever been threatened by a weapon before today?" Grandpa Smedry said. "Well, no." Grandpa Smedry nodded. "Panic instinct. Your talent protects you, even at a distance when threatened. It's a good thing that he attacked with such a primitive weapon. Talents are much more powerful against them. Honestly, you'd think the librarians would know not to send someone with a gun against a Smedry of the true line. They obviously underestimate you." "What am I doing here?" I whispered. "They're going to kill me." "Nonsense, lad," Grandpa Smedry said. "You're a Smedry. We're made of tougher stuff than the librarians give us credit for. Ruling the Hushlands for so long has made them sloppy." I stood quietly. Then I looked up. "We're really going into the library? The place where these guys come from? Isn't that kind of dumb?" "Yes," Grandpa Smedry said, speaking for once with a quiet solemnity. "You can stay back if you wish. I know how this must all seem to you. Overwhelming, terrifying, strange. But you must understand me when I say our task is vital. We've made a terrible mistake. I've made a terrible mistake by letting those sands get into the wrong hands. I'm going to make it right before thousands upon thousands of people suffer. But isn't there anyone else who could do this?" Grandpa Smedry shook his head. "Those sands will be forged into lenses before the day is out. Our only chance, the world's only chance, is to get them before that happens." I nodded slowly. "Then I'm going," I said. "You can't leave me behind." "Wouldn't dream of it," Grandpa Smedry said. Then he glanced up at the wall where I had broken it. "You do that?" I nodded again. "Nagging nixes! You really do have quite the skill for breaking things," Grandpa Smedry said. Nagging nixes. "Must have been hard for you when you were younger." I shrugged. "What kinds of things can you break?" Grandpa Smedry asked. "All kinds of things," I said. "Doors, electronics, tables. Once I broke a chicken." "A chicken?" I nodded. It was on a field trip. I got kind of frustrated, and I picked up a chicken. When I put it down, it immediately lost all of its feathers, and from then on refused to eat anything but cat food. "Breaking living things," Grandpa Smedry mumbled to himself. "Extraordinary. Untamed, yes, but extraordinary nonetheless." I pointed at the building, hoping to change the subject. "It's a glass box." "Yes," Grandpa Smedry said. "Expander's glass. If you make space inside of it, you can push out the walls inside without pushing out the walls on the outside." "That's impossible. It disobeys the laws of physics. We Hushlanders pay a lot of attention to physics." "That's just librarian talk," Grandpa Smedry said. You've got a lot to learn, lad. Come on, we need to get moving. We're late." I allowed myself to be led away, past the 3 bullet holes in the siding. "They missed," I said, almost to myself. "It's a good thing that man had such bad aim." Grandpa Smedry laughed. "Bad aim? He didn't have a chance of hitting me. I arrived late to every shot. Your talent can do some great things, my boy, but it's not the only powerful ability around. I've been arriving late to my own death since before you were born. In fact, once I was so late to an appointment that I got there before I left." I paused, trying to work through the last statement, but Grandpa Smedry waved me on. We rounded the building. Quentin and Singh stood with one of the station attendants, talking quietly. Singh had a good dozen different guns strapped to his body. He wore 2 holsters on each leg, 1 holster around each upper arm, and 1 underneath each arm. These were complemented by a couple of Uzis tucked into his sash and what looked like a shotgun tied to his back as if it were a sword. "Oh dear," Grandpa Smedley said. "He's not supposed to show them off like that, is he?" No, I said. "Could we peace bond them, you think?" "I don't know what that is," I said, "but I doubt it would help. Still, after getting shot at, the sight of Singh with all those weapons did make me feel a little more comfortable. Until I realized that, if we were going to be bringing an arsenal like that, what would our enemies have?" "Ah, well," Grandpa Smedley said, "I already told him he could bring them. We can hide them in a bag or something. They're really not that dangerous. It's not like he's got a sword or something. Anyway, we need to get moving. We're..." "Late," I said. "Yes, I know." "Good, then let's..." At this point, you should be very annoyed with people getting interrupted mid-sentence. I assure you that I feel the same way. In fact, I think... A silver sports car screeched into the parking lot. Its windows were tinted the deepest black, even the windshield, and it had a sleek, ominous design, the make and model of which I couldn't quite place. It was like every spy car I'd ever seen melded into one. The door burst open, and a girl, about my age, jumped out. Who do you think it is? See if you can guess. Her hair was silvery, matching the car's paint, and she wore fashionable black slacks and silver jacket and carried a black handbag. She appeared to be very, very angry. "Smedley!" she snapped, swatting her purse at Singh as he moved too slowly to get out of her way. "What?" I asked, jumping back slightly. "Not you, lad," Grandpa Smedley said with a sigh. "She means me." "What?" I asked. "What did you do?" "Nothing much," Grandpa Smedley said. "I just kind of left her behind." "That's Bastille, lad. She's our team's knight." Like knight in shining armor. If I'd had any sense, I'd have run away right then. If you guessed Bastille, good job. You got it. All right, that's it for today. Hopefully we will find out what happens at the library in the next chapter. I did read all of chapter 4. So thank you for sticking around. I know this was a little bit of a longer read aloud. So, good job. All right, until tomorrow.